You ever wonder why a guy just disappears? One minute, everything seems great. He's texting, calling, making plans, telling you how amazing you are. Then suddenly, nothing. No explanation, no closure, just silence. And the worst part? You sit there, replaying every conversation, every moment, trying to figure out what you did wrong. But let me tell you something that's going to change the way you see this forever. When a man ghosts, it's not about you. It's about him. The reason most men ghost isn't because they didn't like you. It's not because you weren't good enough. It's not because they suddenly lost interest overnight. It's because they lack the courage to have an uncomfortable conversation. That's it. They take the easy way out because facing the truth would require a level of maturity they're not ready for. And instead of owning their feelings, instead of being upfront and saying, hey, I don't think this is working, or I don't feel the same connection, they disappear. Because that's easier than looking you in the eye and having an honest conversation. And I get it. When this happens to you, it's frustrating. It's confusing. It makes you question yourself in ways you shouldn't. Because when someone walks away without a word, it creates a gap, an open loop in your mind that begs for answers. But here's the reality. The kind of man who ghosts was never going to be the kind of man who gave you the relationship you truly deserve. Because a man who avoids confrontation in the early stages of dating is going to avoid a lot more when real challenges come up in a relationship. Now, I know what some people will say. Maybe he didn't want to hurt my feelings. But let's be honest. Ghosting doesn't spare feelings. It actually makes things worse. It leaves you hanging, trying to decode what happened. And if a man truly cared about your feelings, he wouldn't vanish. He would respect you enough to have a real conversation, because real men, mature men, understand that honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, is far kinder than silence. But here's the thing you need to hear most. When a man ghosts, he's telling you everything you need to know. He's showing you that he's not equipped for the kind of relationship you want. And while that might sting in the moment, it's actually a gift. Because now you don't have to waste more of your time trying to build something with someone who isn't capable of showing up for you in a real way. The wrong man exiting your life is never a loss. It's just making room for the right one to show up. And listen, I know the temptation. You want to reach out. You want to get closure. You want to hear him say something to justify why he left the way he did. But you don't need closure from him. You don't need some half-hearted excuse, some weak explanation. Your closure is in knowing that a man who truly values you wouldn't leave you questioning your worth. A man who disappears is not a man who deserved a place in your life in the first place. So the next time someone ghosts you, don't internalize it. Don't make it about you. Recognize it for what it is, an act of their emotional immaturity. And instead of chasing them, wondering what went wrong, remind yourself of this. You are not hard to leave. You are impossible to forget. And the right man, he won't ghost. He won't disappear. He will stay. Because real connection isn't about convenience. It's about courage. A man who ghosts or lies isn't necessarily a bad person. He's not always some manipulative player sitting there plotting ways to hurt you. But what he is emotionally immature. And that immaturity is what stops him from being able to give you the honesty and respect you deserve. See, emotional maturity isn't just about age. It's not about how long someone has been dating, how many relationships they've had, or whether they're old enough to know better. Emotional maturity is about how someone deals with discomfort. It's about how they navigate difficult conversations, how they handle their own emotions, and most importantly, how they respect yours. A man who ghosts or lies isn't mature enough to face his own feelings. So he sure as hell isn't going to be mature enough to face yours. Because when someone ghosts, what they're really saying is, I would rather disappear than deal with the discomfort of telling you the truth. And that truth could be anything. Maybe he's not feeling the same connection. Maybe he knows he doesn't want a relationship, but enjoys the attention. Maybe he's just not emotionally available, but he doesn't want to admit that to himself, let alone to you. So, instead of stepping up and communicating, he takes the easy way out. He disappears. He avoids. He leaves you with questions instead of answers. And lying is just the same thing dressed up in a different outfit. Lying is about self-preservation. It's about avoiding the awkward moment of disappointing you. Or worse, looking like the bad guy. A man who lies about his feelings or his intentions is just trying to save face. He wants to keep things easy, smooth, fun, without having to actually own up to the fact that he's not being serious. So he tells you what you want to hear in the moment. He makes promises he never intends to keep. He says, I'm just really busy right now, instead of admitting, I'm not prioritizing this. He says, I'm not ready for a relationship, but then turns around and gets into one 3 months later with someone else. It's not because he's changed in those 3 months. It's not because he suddenly became ready. It's because he was always capable of showing up for the right person, and deep down he knew that wasn't going to be you. But instead of owning that and being upfront, he kept you in the dark because it was easier. Because facing the truth would have required a level of emotional courage that he just doesn't have. And I know how frustrating that is. I know how much it hurts to be on the receiving end of that. Because you are showing up, you are bringing emotional maturity to the table, you are being vulnerable, you are communicating, you are being honest, and you assume that because you're doing those things, the other person will too. But here's the hard reality. Someone's emotional maturity has nothing to do with yours. You could be the most emotionally intelligent person in the world, but if he's still operating on the level of a teenage boy who would rather ghost than have a tough conversation, that's his issue, not yours. The mistake we make is trying to teach someone how to be emotionally mature. We think, maybe if I explain how this hurt me, he'll see my perspective and change. We think maybe if I just give him a little more time, he'll grow up. But here's the thing. Maturity isn't something you can hand to someone. It's not something you can give them through patience, kindness, or understanding. He has to develop it on his own. And if he's not there yet, you staying and waiting for him to get there isn't going to change anything. What it will do is drain you. It will keep you in a cycle where you're constantly questioning, constantly making excuses for his behavior, constantly rationalizing why someone who says he cares about you is still making choices that hurt you. And that's not love. That's not connection. That's emotional exhaustion. And look, I get it. It's tempting to think that if you just had more clarity, if he had just given you the truth instead of ghosting, it wouldn't hurt as much. And maybe that's true. Maybe if he had said, hey, I just don't see this going anywhere, it would have stung for a few days, but at least you'd have closure. But let me ask you this, would it really change the outcome? Because whether he ghosted, lied, or told you the absolute truth in the most mature way possible, the result would still be the same. He wouldn't be your guy. He wouldn't be choosing you. And the reality is, the kind of man you want wouldn't have to be forced into honesty in the first place. A man who is truly ready for a relationship doesn't disappear. He doesn't lie. He doesn't avoid tough conversations. He steps up. He communicates. He respects your time, your feelings, and your energy. And the most powerful thing you can do is recognize that your time is too valuable for someone who doesn't operate at that level. Because when you start expecting emotional maturity, you start attracting emotional maturity. When you stop tolerating men who ghost or lie, you make space for the men who don't. And the moment you stop chasing the potential in someone and instead start choosing people who are already emotionally available, everything changes. So if he ghosted, if he lied, if he left you wondering what the hell happened, don't chase answers. Don't try to make sense of immaturity. Just remember this, a great woman deserves a great man, and a great man doesn't run. Some men ghost or lie not because they're bad people, but because they want to keep their options open. They like the attention, they enjoy the excitement, but they're not truly committed. And rather than be upfront about it, they choose the path of least resistance, keeping you around just enough so they don't lose you, but never really stepping up to claim you. Think about it. If someone is truly invested in you, they won't risk losing you over ambiguity. They'll want to make things clear, define where they stand, and give you the security of knowing they are present. But when someone is unsure about you, they tread this middle ground. They give just enough to make you feel special, just enough to keep you hoping, just enough to keep you engaged, but not enough to make you feel safe. And that's where ghosting or lying becomes their way out. This isn't about you lacking something. It's not that you weren't good enough, pretty enough, smart enough, or fun enough. In fact, it's usually the opposite. You are someone who brings value, who brings substance, and that makes them hesitate. Because when a man isn't ready for something serious, when he's not ready to truly commit, he sees a woman with real depth and starts to panic. Not because you're intimidating, but because choosing you means closing doors. It means giving up the casual, the easy, the low-effort connections that require nothing from him. And for someone who is still playing the field, that's terrifying. So instead of having the decency to say, I'm not looking for anything serious, or I don't think I can give you what you deserve, they'll avoid that conversation altogether. Because if they tell you the truth, they risk you walking away. They risk losing your energy, your affection, your presence in their life. And for a man who thrives on attention but doesn't want responsibility, that's not a risk he's willing to take. This is why you get mixed signals. One day, they're all in, texting, calling, making you feel like the most important person in the world. The next day, they pull away, disappear, or act distant. They're not emotionally invested, but they don't want to lose the benefits of your presence. It's like they're keeping a foot in the door, making sure it never fully closes, so they can step back in whenever they want. But here's what you need to understand. A man who truly values you will never treat you like an option. He won't ghost when he gets bored. He won't lie to string you along. He won't manipulate your emotions just to keep you within reach. A man who is serious about you will want clarity just as much as you do. He won't risk losing you by playing games because he knows you are worth choosing not just when it's convenient, but every single day. If someone is making you feel uncertain, if you're always wondering where you stand, if you have to analyze texts or decode mixed signals, that's your answer right there. That's not someone who is all in. That's not someone who is meeting you at the level you deserve. And the most important thing you can do in that situation is reclaim your power. You don't need to chase for answers. You don't need to beg for clarity. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who refuses to step up. Because when you respect yourself, when you set the standard that you won't tolerate inconsistency, you naturally filter out the men who aren't ready. You stop giving time and energy to people who are just keeping you as an option, and you start making space for someone who actually values you. And that's the real game changer. The moment you stop allowing yourself to be a placeholder in someone else's life is the moment you start attracting people who actually want to be in yours. So don't settle for mixed signals. Don't excuse ghosting. Don't justify lies, because the right person won't make you question your worth. The right person will show up, stay, and make it crystal clear that they choose you. A man who ghosts or lies doesn't truly see the value of honesty, not in the way you do, not in the way a person who wants real connection does. Because honesty, real honesty, isn't just about telling the truth when it's convenient. It's about showing up when it's uncomfortable. It's about looking someone in the eye and giving them the dignity of clarity, even when it's hard to do. And the truth is, not everyone is built for that. When a man disappears, when he spins stories that don't add up, when he plays the game of ambiguity, it's not because he doesn't know honesty matters. It's because for him, honesty doesn't serve a purpose in the way deception does. A person like this sees honesty as something to use selectively when it benefits them. But when honesty requires discomfort, when it means disappointing someone, when it demands responsibility, that's when they opt out. It's a painful thing to accept, but not everyone values the truth in the same way. Some people see honesty as a burden, a confrontation, something to be avoided at all costs. They'll tell themselves, they're sparing you from hurt, when in reality, they're just sparing themselves from an uncomfortable moment. And so they vanish, they make excuses, they fabricate justifications to make their exit easier on themselves. Because in their mind, if they don't say the words out loud, if they never formally end things, then maybe they never really did anything wrong. But let's be real, silence is its own kind of dishonesty. Disappearing is a choice. And lying, whether it's outright or through omission, is just another way of saying, I don't respect you enough to be clear with you. That's the truth most people don't want to face. When someone ghosts, when someone lies, they are making a decision about how much they value your dignity. And if they don't see honesty as an essential part of how they treat you, they don't truly value you in the way you deserve. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Because when you're the person on the receiving end of this, it's easy to internalize it, to think, if I were more important to him, he wouldn't have done this. If I were more special, he would have told me the truth. If I were enough, he would have stayed. But that's not how this works. A person's lack of honesty isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their character, their values, their capacity for depth. And someone who cannot be honest, someone who cannot look you in the eyes and say, I don't see a future here, or I'm not as invested as you are, or even, I'm just not ready for this. That's not someone who was ever going to show up for you in the way you deserve, because honesty is the foundation of every real connection. It's what allows trust to build. It's what creates security. It's what lets you be vulnerable without fear. And if someone is unwilling to be honest with you, what they're really saying is, I don't want to put in the effort that honesty requires. They're choosing the easy way out. And here's the thing, someone who takes the easy way out when it comes to communication will take the easy way out in other areas too. When things get tough, when real commitment is required, when life demands more than just surface level engagement. If they can't be honest with you about where they stand, what makes you think they would ever be able to be honest with you when life throws real challenges your way? And this is why when a man ghosts or lies, your instinct should not be to chase. It should not be to demand answers from someone who was too cowardly to give them in the first place. It should not be to replay the conversations, to search for hidden meanings, to try and piece together an explanation that makes it make sense. Because the explanation is simple. Someone who truly values you does not make you question where you stand. Someone who genuinely cares does not treat honesty like a convenience. They treat it like a responsibility. So if a man ghosts, if he lies, if he avoids honesty because it doesn't serve him, you have to understand what that means. It means he was never truly prepared to build something real. It means his way of navigating relationships is rooted in self-preservation, not mutual respect. And that's not someone you want in your life. That's not someone you should be giving your energy to. That's not someone who gets to occupy space in your heart. The right person, the right man, he won't be perfect, but he will be honest. He will communicate even when it's difficult. He will have the courage to be upfront with you, even if it means telling you something you don't want to hear. And he will never make you feel like you have to decode his behavior to understand where you stand. So don't waste your time trying to get honesty from someone who doesn't value it. Don't exhaust yourself trying to get clarity from someone who chose to leave you in the dark. And most importantly, don't ever let someone's lack of honesty make you question your own worth. Because the way someone treats you is never a measure of your value. It's always a reflection of who they are, the kind of man you deserve. He won't ghost. He won't lie. He won't make you wonder. He'll show up. He'll communicate. He'll tell the truth, not because it's easy, but because he understands that honesty is the foundation of everything that matters. Here's the hard truth no one likes to hear. If someone disappears, they were never fully invested. That's it. It doesn't mean you weren't enough. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. It doesn't mean you missed some magical moment where if you had just said the right thing, they would have stayed. It just means they were never all in. And that's uncomfortable to accept because it's so much easier to tell ourselves a story. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe they're scared of their feelings. We give people so much credit for their potential that we ignore the reality of their actions. And reality is always telling you the truth. People who want to be in your life make it clear through their consistency. And people who don't, they fade. They disappear. They string you along with just enough to keep you hoping for something more. But let's go deeper, because if you've ever been ghosted, you know that moment of self-doubt. That instant where you start replaying everything in your mind. Did I come on too strong? Did I say something wrong? Was I too available? Not mysterious enough? And suddenly, the person who left without a word is now living rent-free in your head, making you question your worth. That's the biggest tragedy of ghosting. Not that someone left, but that it makes you forget who you are. It makes you feel powerless. And that's why I want you to hear this. When someone ghosts you, it is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their inability to communicate, their inability to respect you enough to be honest, their inability to show up with the emotional maturity that a real relationship requires. That is not a loss for you. That is a dodged bullet. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but they seemed so into me at first. They were texting every day. They said all the right things. They talked about the future. It felt real. And I believe you. I really do. But here's something crucial to understand. Someone's excitement at the beginning does not determine their ability to follow through. Enthusiasm is easy. Showing up consistently over time, that's what matters. A lot of people love the idea of a relationship more than the actual work of one. They love the thrill of attraction, the attention, the fun of connection, until it starts requiring responsibility, until it requires effort. And that's where the difference lies. A person who is serious about you won't just show up when it's exciting, they'll stay when it's real. And let's be clear, someone doesn't have to be a terrible person to ghost you. Lies, it doesn't mean they set out to hurt you. In many cases, they simply weren't ready. They didn't know how to say, hey, I don't think this is right for me. So instead, they did what was easiest for them and just disappeared. And while that might make them feel better in the short term, it leaves you with all the questions. But I want you to reframe this, because right now you might be thinking, how could they just leave like that? Why couldn't they just tell me the truth? But the real question is, why would I ever want to be with someone who can't even have an honest conversation? Why would I invest in someone who can't even show basic respect? And here's where your power comes back, because when someone ghosts you, you get to decide what meaning you attach to it. You can either see it as a rejection or you can see it as a revelation. You can see it as proof that you weren't good enough, or you can see it as proof that they weren't strong enough to handle you. And I know how tempting it is to try and get closure, to reach out one more time just to see if maybe, just maybe, there's an explanation that will make it all make sense. But let me ask you something. What answer would actually satisfy you? If they said, oh, I just got busy, would that make it better? If they said, I wasn't ready for a relationship, would that make the pain go away? Closure isn't about getting an answer from them. Closure is about deciding for yourself that you're done. It's about looking at the situation and saying, I deserve better than someone who leaves me questioning where I stand. I deserve better than someone who disappears the moment things get real. I deserve someone who chooses me every day, not just when it's convenient for them. Because the right person, they don't ghost, they don't play games, they don't leave you wondering, they communicate, they show up. They make their intentions clear. And anything less than that is not your problem to fix. It's a standard you refuse to accept. So the next time someone ghosts you, let them. Let them remove themselves from your life, because the person who disappears was never the person meant for you. And the sooner they're gone, the sooner you make space for someone who actually deserves to be there. The reality is, if someone ghosts you or lies to you, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their limitations. It's easy to get caught up in questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Was I too much? Was I not enough? But the moment you start doubting your own value because of someone else's cowardice, you're giving them too much power over your happiness. A great woman doesn't lose her value just because the wrong man couldn't see it. Think about it. When someone ghosts, they're making a decision that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own inability to show up. It's not about whether you were interesting enough, attractive enough, or lovable enough. It's about the fact that they lack the emotional depth to handle a real conversation, to be honest about their intentions, or to respect you enough to communicate. And if someone lacks those qualities, they are not someone you should want to invest in. But here's where a lot of people get stuck. You think that if you just had that one more conversation, if you just proved your worth a little more, they would have stayed. That's not how it works. A person who truly values you will not put you in a position where you're left questioning whether they do or not. When a man wants to be in your life, he will make that clear through his actions. He won't disappear when things get serious. He won't lie to keep you around while still entertaining other options. And he certainly won't leave you hanging, waiting for a text that never comes, while you sit there making excuses for his behavior. So the question is, why give your energy to someone who doesn't choose you? Why invest your time, your emotions, and your love into someone who couldn't even give you the basic decency of a conversation? Every time you chase after someone who walked away without explanation, you're telling yourself that their presence in your life matters more than your own peace. But your peace is everything. Your peace is what allows you to show up as the best version of yourself. And anyone who disrupts that by making you feel anxious, uncertain, or unworthy has no place in your future. It's easy to romanticize someone who leaves you with questions. We have this habit of filling in the blanks with a version of them that's much better than reality. Maybe he was scared of how much he liked me. Maybe he's going through something right now. But let's call it what it is. If someone disappears without a word, they're showing you exactly how they handle problems. And that's not a communication issue. That's not a fear of intimacy issue. That's a lack of respect. Respect is the foundation of any real connection. It's what separates a relationship from a game. And when someone ghosts, when someone lies, they're playing a game where they hold all the control. They get to leave when they want and come back if they feel like it, all while you sit there trying to decode their actions like there's some kind of mystery you need to solve. But they're not a mystery. They're just someone who wasn't strong enough to handle a real relationship. A high-value woman doesn't beg for clarity from someone who had every opportunity to give it and chose not to. A high-value woman doesn't wait around for someone who didn't have the courage to stay. You do not chase. You do not try to win someone over who couldn't even meet the bare minimum standard of basic human decency. You take that energy, the energy you would have spent wondering what went wrong, the energy you would have spent drafting a message you know you'll never send, and you put it into yourself. You build a life that makes you feel excited, fulfilled, and powerful. Because here's the truth. The right man will never leave you questioning where you stand. He won't ghost, he won't lie, he won't make you feel like you're auditioning for a spot in his life. He will step up, he will show up, and he will make it abundantly clear that he wants to be with you. You don't need to chase the right person. They will already be standing right there, choosing you.